Welcome to the Chase Podcast. Dr. Ron Charles is a renowned archaeologist, author, historian, speaker, missionary, and is known as the Christian Indiana Jones. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and information about this global ministry.
We took the communion today, and as I was just before I came up here to read the scriptures for you, my eyes caught this sign, Lion of Judah. You know, we've all of you have heard about the Lion of Judah. You've sung about it. You've read scriptures about it. You've read sermons about it, books about it. But does anyone really know why Jesus is the Lion of Judah? What all that means? Just very, very briefly, and this is a kind of a piggyback on communion. During many years ago, at the time of David and Saul and those guys, there were a number of lions in the region of what is now Israel, and there was enough there that they were going to last for a while until Ahab became king of the northern kingdom of Israel. And then he went on a killing spree that eliminated over a period of about 2 years all of the lions in Judea except for one. And that one was a pet, so to speak, of Jehoshaphat, who was the king of Judah. At this time, the Jews were divided into two kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. And Jehoshaphat was the king. Well, Jerusalem became under siege, and it was a combination of the Philistines, the Phoenicians, and the Syrians that came against Jehoshaphat in the city of Jerusalem. The city was surrounded. They didn't know what they were going to do, and things looked pretty hopeless. But this pet lion, he was a male lion, this pet of Jehoshaphat's got loose, and he had some type of sixth sense in him that something was happening, that his master was in danger, and his friends were in danger. And so somehow he got out of the city and through the city gate, and he walked out before Jerusalem all by himself. And he stood there and he roared, challenging the armies that was there. The army numbered well over 15,000 people. And he was there by himself, challenging the forces of the enemy. Well, they tried to, they felt that the lion was no match to their army, but it certainly could have boosted the morale of the people in Jerusalem so that they could put up a fight or a defense which they perhaps could have been victorious. So it was necessary to get rid of the lion. As the story goes, he suffered more than 100 arrows into his body. He was still alive, still challenging the enemy. And then one of the keepers of the lion, he became I guess you'd call it a treasonous person. He received a lot of money from the Syrians to lead the lion into death. And so the lion trusted this man because he had been his keeper since the time he was just a small little pup. And so when this man approached, then the lion, by that time called the Lion of Judah, submitted to him and to his friendship, much like Judas did with Jesus. And so the lion submitted to him, and he led him away into an ambush. The lion was killed, and how he was killed is that they ran a spear up through his entire body and hung him there in the field, waiting for him to die. After the death of the lion, he was brought back into the city of Jerusalem, and it was the skin was taken off, and from that time forward, on Coronation Day of the kings of Israel, they wore the lion's skin on the day that they were crowned king. And Nebuchadnezzar took that same skin when they captured Jerusalem and Judea, brought it back to Babylon, and the Babylonian kings then took on the practice. But not only that, they had preserved part of the meat and certainly preserved the blood of the lion. And on that coronation day and in the day of his death, from that time forward, a piece of the meat was eaten, and the blood, a portion of the blood was placed on the forehead and the nose and both ears of the king, signifying that I now have the spirit of this great, great warrior. And it was that truth, that historical reality, is what was adopted into the life of Jesus. And now we call him the Lion of Judah, and based on that actual story. And it was and when people said that about Jesus, they immediately knew what type of character he was, and what type of a person that he was, and how the respect that was due him was certainly far less than what he should receive, regardless of what it is. But anyway, while we were taking just before we took the communion, I wasn't even paying attention to the sign until I looked up, and boom, there it was. And communion was certainly the perfect memorial to the Lion of Judah. Turn me, if you will, to the book of Mark. So we look at chapter number 10. We'll begin reading verse number 46. And they came to Jericho. Now this is Jesus and his disciples. And as he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great number of people, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the highway side begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And many charged him that he should hold his peace. But he cried the more a great deal, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. And they called the blind man, saying unto him, Be of good comfort, rise, he calleth thee. And he, casting away his garment, rose and came to Jesus. And Jesus answered and said unto him, What wilt thou that I should do unto you? And the blind man said unto Jesus, Lord, that I may receive my sight. Now, the word that's been translated receive in the King James Version is the Greek word anastasian, which means avenge. So in the original language, it says that I might avenge my sight. And Jesus said unto him, Go thy way, thy faith has made thee whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way. The story about Bartimaeus is quite amazing. Bar means son of. So when you say Bartimaeus, it means the son of Timaeus. And we see in this Mark setting that he was the son of Timaeus. Now, Herod Antipas had a palace. He was the governor of Perea and the Galilee. He had a palace in Jericho, and next to his palace was an armory that he would use in case there was some type of local problems that they needed soldiers for. They could arm them with this. Well, his housekeeper, or his business administrator, was a Jew Greek. His father was Greek, his mother was Jewish, and so his name was Timaeus. and he was a very good servant and very good business administrator for Herod Antipas. But Timaeus had a son who was an absolute jerk. Okay? He was born with both a silver and a gold spoon in his mouth. Anything he wanted, he got, but he never appreciated anything. You know anyone like that? Oh, this is what happened with him. He had loyalties to no one, but he would do anything for a buck. There were members of the Galilean Zealots, revolutionary group, who they approached the son of Timaeus. His name was Infatius. So they approached Infatius about making some type of arrangements that we'll give you so much money if you let us in to the armory with the cover of night, and we'll get our weapons that we need. Well, Infatius had no loyalty to this group or no loyalty to the Romans. He just wanted the money. And so they agreed. 17 members of the revolutionary group was allowed into the city with Infatius being there ushering them in, and they tried to break into the armory. But Timaeus had found out about what was happening, so he turned his son into the Roman authorities. And as they broke into the armory, the Roman authorities caught them and arrested them. Now, the 17 members of the revolutionary group were crucified on the highest point of the city, overlooking the city. But Infatius could have been accused and could have been imprisoned or faced death because of treason. But they did not, because of Timaeus and his good relationships over the years, they gave his son a break. And they accused him of profiting by seditious means. Okay? So they didn't accuse him of treason, but they said that he made a profit off of someone who was trying to commit treason. And so because of that, and because of his Roman citizenship, he was not crucified like the other ones were and did not face death. But he did face punishment. They call this particular punishment imperial punishment. Punishment that was specifically dictated by the Roman emperor himself, from Tiberius himself. Well, at the time that this happened, actually Augustus Caesar was the emperor, and so he was under this imperial judgment, which means that Caesar and only Caesar could reverse it or to stop it. Infatius first had his eyes burned out with a red-hot sword, and then after this, he was forced to wear a scarlet robe around his shoulders, and this indicated to anyone who saw him that he was under judgment by Caesar himself. He was under imperial judgment. He had to wear this garment 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for the remainder of his life. If he took it off, then he could be immediately killed by any military personnel who was in the area. Anyone. The final thing is that he was restricted. He said he could never leave the city of Jericho, but he could never enter Jericho. Now that's kind of confusing until you realize what Jericho was about. He could never go home again to his father's house of Timaeus. He could never go into the upper city, but he was restricted here. He was never able to leave here, and his sentence was that he would have to beg in this region for the remainder of his life, and was not allowed to go through these gates or to leave the city in any way. So the judgment had been made. Now, Jesus at this time did not have problems with the Romans. As a matter of fact, Jesus had done some good for Romans we have a Roman centurion whose servant had been healed by Jesus. We have others that were taught by Jesus. And the Romans had no problems with Jesus at this time. He wasn't trying to cause a rebellion. He wasn't doing anything that would affect them. The only thing that they felt like he was doing was good. Now, he knew the Pharisees hated him, but they hated the Pharisees too, so that was okay. And so Jesus was not an enemy of Rome. But Jesus also knew this, that he was on his way to Jerusalem. And the reason why he was on his way to Jerusalem is that he knew that he would die in Jerusalem. And not just a regular death, but the most horrifying death that Rome could conceive, that by crucifixion. It was impossible with the position Jesus held with Rome at this time. There was no way that within 2 weeks, Jesus would drop from this high pedestal of respect and honor down to treason. And only the Romans could crucify for treason, and they were the only ones who could kill for treason. And so the Romans had to do it. Not the Jews, the Romans. But logically speaking, that could never, ever happen. Not with the prestige he had and the low area that he had to get to. It was impossible. Even if Jesus was to insult every Roman official in Judea, it wouldn't be enough to drop him that low. So Jesus had to make a calculated decision. How can I make the Romans my enemy so that they could crucify me in 2 weeks' time? How can I lower myself from this level down to this level so that the Romans could kill me, crucify me, as has been prophesied? And how I knew it must take place, and I know that it has to be this way. Looking at it from a human's point of view and our personality point of view, Jesus probably could have remained the rest of his life in that region, highly respected by the Romans. Jesus probably could have even participated in some administrative duties. He was that much respected and honored by the Romans. He would have lived his life for the rest of his life with having problems with no one but the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Certainly not the Romans. But he didn't. Jesus had to do something that would place him in a position of contempt, revilement, and an enemy of Rome in just 2 weeks' time. Jesus had been with Zacchaeus, and there's a position right here by the gate. They call this the pillar of recompense. There's also an office there where the clerk of recompense stays. At this time, the clerk of recompense was Alexius Gaius Irenaeus, and he's the one that wrote the information about the confrontation with Bartimaeus. Now, his purpose was to kind of be the patrol. If anyone was going into the city, then he inspected to see if they had the right permission to do so, or was at the level that allowed them to go in. He also was the clerk of recompense. The pillar of recompense was there. Every city that had a population of 10,000 or more had a pillar of recompense on the outskirts of the city. What this was this, is that if you felt like you had been abused by someone in the city, a neighbor, your employer, or if you try to collect money from someone and they refuse to pay you, or something like that, at which you felt like you had been abused, and you had exhausted all of your efforts to try to resolve the issue, and you had no success, then you could go to the pillar of recompense, and the clerk of recompense was there to record. You would take your shoes off, and you would hit the shoes against the pillar, and with that you're signifying that you're dusting the memory of this person off of your body, off of everything about you, and you are dusting the dust of the city and the circumstances away from you. Now, when you did that, then that meant that you have given the authority to Rome to take care of this problem. Now, for the next 40 days, the clerk of recompense sends his people out to do some investigating. In that 40 days' time, if they find that your complaint is justified, then that person has to pay you double. And if they don't pay you within 120 days, then they pay you 4 times the amount that's owed you. But in this investigation, if it's shown that you kind of fudged a little bit, that you had a personal grudge against this person, and so you wanted Rome to take care of it, and that your offense just wasn't really enough for Rome to take care of, then the person who gave the offense, they would have to pay the other person double, and if they don't pay them with 120 days, then 4 times the amount. And not only that, to go to prison. Now, another job of the clerk of recompense was to record in the official annals of Rome any major event that would take place. Obviously, Jesus and his confrontation with Zacchaeus was a major event. And so he was there to record this event. But something that was even greater than that was that when Jesus came out of the gate of the city and entered the road to go out of the city to Jerusalem, then by that roadside was the imperial prisoner of Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus. And he screamed at Jesus, "Thou son of David," which is a messianic title, which means that he was bringing Jesus up to that level of the authority that could even neutralize the authority of Rome. And he called out to him. Now Jesus had to make a decision. If he responded to this man, if he healed him, then Jesus' notoriety, his honor, his prestige would begin at that moment to plummet. So that by the time he reached Jerusalem, that he would be a full-fledged enemy of Rome. So Jesus made his decision, and he told the people that were there, "Bring him to me." He said, "What do you want, sir?" Now, first of all, the guy took off his red coat. Okay, that could have been imprisonment or death by doing that, because that signified that he was under judgment of Roman Caesar himself. So he threw his cloak off. Then he came to Jesus, and he says, "That I might avenge my sight." And Jesus said, "Okay, your faith has made you whole." Jesus totally countermanded the judgment, totally neutralized the lifetime punishment that Caesar Augusta himself had handed down. And not only that, Jesus allowed this man to follow him out of the city. So Jesus now had voluntarily placed himself in the position of being guaranteed death by the Romans. And not only death by the Romans, but the most horrifying death that they could conceive. By the time Jesus and his followers did reach Jerusalem, then that was the case. The word had spread that Jesus had countered the judgment of Augustus Caesar, that he had interfered in with the judgment of Rome, and that now he certainly was an enemy of the great Roman Empire. Bartimaeus was arrested again when he reached Jerusalem. The authorities arrested him, put him in prison in Caesarea Maritima, and there he stayed until the year AD 37, when Emperor Caligula released him as a general amnesty, releasing in Judea. While he was in prison, he became a true believer in Jesus, and he became very dedicated to Jesus. And as a matter of fact, he became the pastor of a church in Perea, and he also helped Zacchaeus in the establishment of other churches in the region. And so the end result was good as far as Bartimaeus was concerned, but as far as Jesus was concerned, it was not good from the human standpoint. But from our standpoint, it was wonderful. So Jesus willingly, premeditatively, and knowingly placed himself in a position of ridicule, of dishonor, and death, all because of us. Now, what type of love is that? The type of love that we can't comprehend. The type of love that we have never had to choose to do. But he did it. And he did it because of his intense love for us, placing himself from the highest level to the lowest level, knowingly. Surely he is absolutely that Lion of Judah and that friend that sticks closer than a brother.
The Chase with Dr. Ron Charles is sponsored by supporters of the Cubit Foundation. Visit cubitfoundation.org for Dr. Ron's books and discover how you can support this global ministry.